Hey everyone, welcome back to Tent Talk, the Farmers Market podcast. This is the show all about farmers markets and how to increase your market business success. Whether you're a farmers market manager or a farmer or food producer selling at farmers markets, this is the podcast for you. Hey everyone, I'm Bridget Myers, one of your Tent Talk podcast hosts. At Intense, the Farmers Market Conference 2020, a few weeks ago, we heard from a variety of people who make farmers markets happen. As the sales director for Apricot Lane Farms, featured in the hit film The Biggest Little Farm, Nathan Macaulay manages a team that sells fruit, vegetables, and meat at 6 weekly farmers markets in California. He shared how to recruit, train, and retain a dynamic team to staff all those booths and maximize sales. Listen in to this edition of Tent Talk Live.
Thank you. All right, so growing a market team, really what I can tell you is the very best way to get applicants in is to make a movie. So if you have a production team on your farm, do that. It helps. No, thank you for having me. Apricot Lane Farms is a very unique farm and has grown really, really quickly in a short amount of time. It started in 2011 with John and Molly Chester. They are the founders and the visionaries behind the farm. And what started at 3 people in 2011 is now up to 72 people, less than 9 years later. That's a lot of people. So there's been a lot of growing pains, a lot of learning and adapting and figuring stuff out along the way. So a little bit about myself. My background, I actually went to college and got my bachelor's in music. Nothing to do with food whatsoever. But it wasn't my passion, it wasn't my true passion. I always found myself in the evening in the kitchen cooking for nobody, and then bringing the food the next day to the school music and giving it to everybody. So I ended up immediately after college going into culinary school, and I did that for 10 years. I worked my way up to a chef, was a chef for 5 years, and I was incredibly naive in what I actually knew of produce. I thought I knew seasonality, thought I knew how stuff grew, but that wasn't the case at all. And so I'm sorry to all of you for underestimating the work that you do on a daily basis. But I wanted to change. I wanted to have a family. Chef life wasn't going to give me that. So then I went into wholesale produce distribution. I love food. I wanted to stay in the food industry, and that was the next step. But it didn't sit right in my stomach. There was just something there that I was missing. It wasn't fulfilling on a daily basis. And so a former colleague of mine who had become a farmer's market manager in Santa Monica, she turned me on to the ad that I responded to for produce coordinator at Apricot Lane Farms. I'd never heard of Apricot Lane Farms before, and this was a brand new position. They were just about to go into year 5, and at that point, none of the trees had produced more than 5 or 10 pounds of fruit. And so this job was supposed to start selling everything where they were figuring maybe they would have a few 100 pounds. I later found out a few years afterwards that they had about 100 times more produce the year that I started than they were expecting. But I sold it all. So what is the one secret that makes an individual stand out in a crowd? Is being a hard worker. Makes training each individual an easy and repeatable process, and holds a team together to give them longevity. If you have the answer, please tell me your secret. There isn't one that I've found. It just is a fluid thing. Managing a team is hard work, and getting a team to be all on the same page, working towards the same goal, is not easy. If you were able to get everybody to row in the same direction, it would be a miracle. I always tell my team that produce is, at the best of times, controlled chaos. And that's at the best of times. Now throw in the farmer's market factor. I've been at Apricot Lane Farms now for 4 years, and we actually started selling wholesale. That's what I took over, the few handful of accounts. And 2.5 years ago, we started our farmers markets. I'm on my 2nd market team, and there's been a lot of growth from where it was just me when we started up until today, where we have now, once we get done with this next set of hires, I'll have 15 people on the team. 6 markets, about to be 7 next month. We have 3 on Sunday alone. That's a mistake if you don't have the personnel. So I'm here to tell you the mistakes that I've made. So hopefully you don't repeat them. And I want to share with you what I have found has worked extremely well. There comes a point that you cannot do everything alone. I can't tell you when that point is. It's different for everybody. But eventually, and I know everybody here wears a million different hats, works long hours, 6-7 days a week. But eventually, there's a breaking point, and nobody should ever get to that point. So that's when you hire somebody. But to hire for your organization, you need to know the organization. So to tell you a little about Apricot Lane Farms, it is an extremely unique farm. We're 214 acres, certified organic and biodynamic. I always get the question, what is biodynamic? Let's just start with it's beyond organic. And if you want more information, we'll talk. We grow over 250 varieties of fruits and vegetables. This one orchard right here, we grow 87 different types of fruits. I like to call that my main office. We grow stone fruit, we grow citrus, we grow apples, we grow pomegranates, figs, persimmons, mulberries. A lot comes out of that orchard. It makes it really, really fun and really, really difficult. I oversee all the picking aspects of the farm, and getting them to line up what's in season with our other operations it's a challenge, and there needs to be good communication there. And I'd say the best way to describe what we do is we do a little bit of a lot of things. So here are the main operations that we have at the farm. I always say that we have about 12 different entities in one organization. The orchards comprise of about 100 acres, mainly avocados and lemons. That was what was there that we've had to restore and farm regeneratively. But we also have, as I showed you, the 24-acre mixed orchard and have planted other orchards along the way. Our garden, it's in the background right there. That's 1 acre. We've since expanded additional areas and have about 2.5 acres. But that 1 acre, only 40% is actually grown for food. The other 60% is either event space or beneficials, and not, you can see, not gardened or farmed in row crops. So we don't get a ton of production out of there. Our fertility program, this is one of my favorites. I always call it the heart of the farm because we do our compost, do about 500 tons of traditional compost a year. We do our vermicompost, which is much smaller batch. From that, we make compost tea that we put out into all the orchards. And then they also are in charge of our bee program. And so without our fertility program, we wouldn't be able to do what we do. Our livestock program, John and Molly, when they first started the farm, they knew they wanted to have animals be a part of it. And their consultant, Alan York, who's a biodynamic consultant for the farm, he knew that animals needed to be part of a traditional regenerative farm. So we have cows, we have chickens, we have sheep, we have pigs, we have 1 horse. All of that works in harmony when everything's going smoothly to create this ecosystem. We're really focused on biomimicry and biodiversity. With the amount of varieties of fruit we grow, the amount of animals, the cover crops, everything is very diverse, and then the people as well. Our poultry program, we do roaster chickens, we do laying birds, and then we also have ducks who are our snail catchers and work amazingly well. And as a byproduct, we get duck eggs from that. Our culinary program, I should have mentioned, John and Molly don't come from traditional farming backgrounds. John was a documentary filmmaker for 20 years, and Molly was a private chef that was based in traditional foods. And one of the main reasons the farm started is Molly wasn't able to find nutrient-dense foods. And so the culinary program is a big part of what we do and why we got started. The events program, this is one of the newer programs or departments on the farm, as we're finding, especially with having a movie out there, that a lot of people want to come in and see what we're doing. Our office, this is the admin, the financial, HR, all of that needs to communicate with the rest of the farm. Production, go see the Biggest Hole Farm, that's my plug. But that's been set up since day one. John, being a documentary filmmaker, he had given it up, but he also knew that if he missed something and wanted to later come back to it, he would regret it, having done documentary filmmaking for so long. And so from day one, that was a part of the farm. And then finally is the sales department. That's my department. And so other than the picking, I oversee the pack house, which processes all the fruits and vegetables that come in from the orchards in the garden. I deal with our wholesale, our direct retail customers, the transportation and delivery, the meat. I line all of that up, figure out the packaging for it, all of our product line, and then, of course, the farmers markets. Now, I can't do this alone at 6, 7 markets. Started them out, and then I started to grow a team around what we did. Before you start growing your team, and this is one of those things that we learn the hard way, you need to create a foundation. Know who you are and what you do. Have a mission statement, and make sure that whoever you're bringing in knows what that mission statement is. So that way they know what you're trying to achieve, and they're on board with it. It's going for the same goal. Your core anchors and values. This is what you want all of your people to embody when they're on the farm on a daily basis, and what your farm itself tries to embody, or your business. And then the culture. What is the culture you want on the farm? Do you want it to be very independent? Do you want it to be a huge communication hub where everybody's talking? If you can answer these questions ahead of time, and then as you start bringing people in, make sure they know this. Make sure you're clear about what it is. You're starting off so much further ahead than I started off. So hiring. We went over the clear alignment with mission, purpose. Financial expectations. I ran into an issue early on where people were coming in and they would accept the job, but then 3 months down the road, 5 months down the road, they'd want a big increase. I had one person who 3 months in wanted a 33% increase in her pay. That is well above what my farmers market staff, I'm able to afford to pay them. We try to be very fair. We have great benefits for a farm, but there was no way that I could possibly do this. And so now I am very, very clear with what the range of each position that I hire in is. It's not to say I can't grow, but I tell people, be happy with what you're at for a minimum of a year. Otherwise, you're gonna resent it come somewhere down the line. Scare tactics. I always try to paint the worst possible portrayal of the job. I want to scare you before you come in, especially with the film, because we have lots of people who see it and go, it's a magical place. It is, it really is, but it's also work. And to go from something you see on the screen and then be like, wait, you want me to do what? And so I tell them, you're gonna be at work 4 in the morning. It's gonna be a 12-hour day. You're gonna be tired by it. You have to be on your feet all day. You're gonna be lifting 75, 100 pounds. I don't make them lift 75 to 100 pounds, but I want to make sure they have realistic expectations of what they're going to be doing, and then exaggerate just a little bit. Multiple interviews. I have found that people's stories change from one interview to another. And it takes a long interview process to really get down to the core of who somebody is. Somebody on the phone is much different than face-to-face. And then face-to-face, usually nerves are a huge thing, especially the first time. People start to relax after a few interviews. And that's when you really start to see who they are, who they really, truly are. Letter of recommendation. And if you can get one from a former supervisor, I think that's one of the best tools that you can use to hire. I'm not so big on resumes, other than seeing if somebody's hopped around from month to month at different jobs. But if they left their previous job on good terms to the point where their supervisor took the time to write them a letter saying how wonderful they were and say they're sorry to see them go, but excited for whatever opportunity they might have in the future, that to me means something. Passion over knowledge. I can teach you about the products that we have. It's going to take time, but we'll get there. Passion is something else. I haven't been able to teach passion. That's going to be an acting class if you want to learn how to do that. But I always look for people who are passionate about it, who are able to, off script, just tell me about themselves. And then take your time and don't plug holes. I fall into this all the time because 2-week notice is not enough time to post an ad, get all the resumes in and applications, sort through them, go through a full interview process. You're looking at really a 6-week process for me to be able to fill that position. So this is something that I'm constantly battling myself with, and I actually will bring in a lot of my other leads and have them to be a part of the process to just remind me not to do that. And then trial days. So, sorry. This I started when I initially had our pack house and our farmer's market separate. And I hired one person for the pick, pack, sort position. That was the pack house title, pick, pack, sort. He applied to it. He came out. After doing a phone interview, we did a face-to-face interview. We loved each other. It seemed like a really good fit. About a month after he started, he came to me and he said he was unhappy. So I asked, why are you unhappy? He goes, well, I didn't realize that the job was going to be so much picking, packing, and sorting. I can't help you. I don't know how more clear than I can make it of pick, pack, sort. But after that, I started doing trial days so people could see, is it a good fit for them? I don't just want them to be a good fit for the farm. I want them to feel like it's the place where they belong, and it's just a natural integration that way. Some red flags to look out for that I've found: overqualified. Now, maybe it's just Apricot Lane Farms itself, but I have overqualified people who have done graphic design or managed this department at this place who have come in and really, they're going to get bored really, really quickly with the farmer's market life or just the pace of the farm. That doesn't go for everybody. And so these are the ones where if they come in overqualified, I don't throw out the resumes, but I approach them much more cautiously. I take my time with them. I make sure that I do multiple trial days sometimes. The trial days, by the way, I do pay. It's not, come work for free. That was the kitchens. Career change. This somewhat ties in with overqualified, but people who are doing career change, a lot of times from what I've found, are ones that need to heal. There's something they're not getting out of that job, and they're looking for a place to heal. And a lot of times, Apricot Lane Farms is that healing place. And it varies in time. Sometimes it's a 6-month healing period. Other times it can be a year. Sometimes it's even shorter than that. But I'm always hesitant with people who are looking for a career change and just want to get their hands in the dirt for a minute. Transfer requests. The farmer's market is one of those departments on the farm where you don't necessarily need to have a lot of experience. The livestock department, you need to know how to work with cows and other animals. But with a farmer's market, if you have that passion, if you just have that personality, I'll bring you on, I'll try out. But if 3 months in, somebody's saying, oh, I really want to go to the habitat restoration team, that sends up a huge red flag. And at that point, I've found that usually you're looking at the beginning of the end for that person because they came on wanting to do something else and aren't happy. And if that's the case, that's fine. If transfers make sense within the business, look at it. But if it doesn't, and that person's not already an exceptional employee, they will not, in my experience, be a good or exceptional employee in another department. It's just how it's worked out. And then family commitments. So markets, at least for us, some of our busiest markets are on the weekends. It's a mandatory thing. If you want to be part of the farmers market team, working the weekends is pretty much a guarantee. And making sure that I want everybody to enjoy their family. I have a family. I want to make sure that I get to see them. But if it doesn't work with your schedule, this isn't going to be the right job because they're going to be calling it out consistently. Oh, this came up. Oh, this person needed this. And then I'm usually the one that ends up plugging that hole. So I love hiring people with families. Usually they end up being the more dependable ones, but there's making sure that they have their bases covered should something arise. So now we go into training. You've hired the person. Include your team through the process whenever possible. This year, we pressed olives for the first time to make olive oil. And we brought the mill out, and I had my team come out and watch the process from beginning to end. This is after they harvested the olives, by the way, which they were very much an integral part of that. So they understand it. If they understand a product more going into the market, they're going to sell it better. They're going to be more knowledgeable about it and be able to answer more questions. And so if they see the full process, they're going to be a great representative for that product. Hands-on and observe, show them how to do it, and then let them continue to do it. Look for mutations in the system. Watch to see if they change anything. It's not necessarily bad when something changes. Sometimes changes can be a good thing, but you also want to make sure that you're okay with it and you don't come back 3 months later and be like, why are we doing it this way? I mentioned before I had the pick, pack, store and the farmer's market team separately. One of the questions that we get asked a lot at the farmer's market is, do you work on the farm? And that's really important to people. They don't want somebody that just comes out on a Saturday and stands at the booth and really knows nothing about the product. They want to have the connection with the farm itself. And so what I've started doing the last year or so is creating a pack house farmer's market combined position where everything that gets sorted and processed, my farmer's market team is the one that is doing that. So they learn the product much, much faster. It also means that I don't have to fill in the schedule for the farmer's market if I want to make them full-time employees with too many markets that I cannot handle. And then in addition to them knowing the product better, they have a pride over what is being displayed on the table. Yeah, I just bunched those yesterday, or I helped pull these and pick that the other day. Having that mentality and that pride, the customer sees it. And your employees will get excited so much more about what they're selling. Try everything. I am always bugging my staff about trying stuff. Try it in the orchard. Try it at the pack house. Try it at the farmer's market. If they don't know what it tastes like, how are they going to sell it? Take it home. Play with it. Cook with it. It's one thing to eat it raw, a radish, a turnip, but how does it change when you cook it? How do you cook it? I give all my team recipes, ideas, ways to bring different items that we have on the table together, and that makes all the difference in how they're then able to sell it. And then make sure they know your all-star items. Your top 2, your top 3, the things that when people try it, they go, oh, I'm coming back here every week. For us, it's our eggs. We sell it every single week. Yes, we have the $15 eggs. And our avocados. Our avocados are phenomenal. And people, once they have them, they come back and they buy them every single week. If you start making sure your team knows those products intimately and sells them, you will see a huge difference. At the end of the day, your market team, they're the ambassadors for you or for the farm. They're the ones who are going to represent you. So they need to be knowledgeable. So we do cross-training in different departments on the farm. During our busy season, when we're in more markets than our year-round markets, this is something that I pull back on and hold off. But during the fall and winter months, and even maybe into early spring, I tell them to go at it. Have 2 days a week, 6 jumps a month to another department. If they know everything that goes into our eggs by actually going and working for a day, collecting the eggs, moving the coops, cleaning the chicken coop, moving the fences, taking them down, putting them up, collecting the eggs again, washing the eggs by hand, packing them, and our eggs are just a like it's a painter's palette. They're all different colors. If they do that just for one day, I will guarantee you that they know more about those eggs than I can ever convey to them. Make resources available. So for us, we have so much we do. And I usually have people on the market team that are so driven, especially when they first start. They want to know more information, and I have to bring them back. But as they are an ambassador, I need to make sure that they have access to that. So we have different guides and books and charts that they can access when they're at the farmer's market and show customers. Tours of the farm. Now, we do public tours of the farm, but I like to give private tours to my team. Show them the different spots that I learned about when I started. Make sure that they're seeing what I see and starting to gain that knowledge. And so I don't do this nearly as much as I should, but it definitely helps. And you see that passion just increase when you start sharing that information with them. And then master classes. This is one of my key points of training. So we do meat. Meat is seasonal for us. It's not something we have year round. We have beef, we have pork, we have lamb, but it's to keep our numbers in check so that way we are stewards of the land. But with meat, all the different types of meat have different ways that you can cook them, different flavors, the different cuts require different cooking techniques, and we're selling the whole animal from nose to tail. We're not just selling ribeyes and T-bone steaks, although that's what sells out first. But then you have to go beyond that and get your team to be knowledgeable and to be able to sell everything else. And so a master class is something where once a month, whatever you deem is a good amount of time, bring them together to start going over that. So we do meat and the different cuts. We do certificates and inspections at the market. I don't know about everybody here. I think we have close to 15 different certificates. Between the CPC, the CDFA organic certification, the third-party certifications are Demeter and CCOF, which really mean nothing to the inspectors, but our customers, we have some customers that want to see our Demeter biodynamic certification because they won't buy anything if it's not on there. Our AVO exemption, egg handlers, WIC, making sure they know how to accept WIC. And then, of course, there's always 3 to 4 different market color-coded coins, which is always a confusing thing to try to figure out. And it's important that they know how to handle the inspectors and be knowledgeable in the certificates, because I've had many discussions, not arguments, discussions with inspectors who have not understood everything we do and understood how we do it. And so I've had to make sure I have the discussion with them, and usually by the end of it, they understand and it goes great. And then varietal differences. Over 215 varieties, I need them to know the color, the flavor, the texture, and the use differences between all the different varietals. This is one of the master classes that actually we just did this past weekend, where I actually brought my farmer's market team in, and Sunday, my entire farmer's market team is out doing markets. And so I came in early, I started cooking, and then I went through them what I had cooked. That's a rack of mutton, by the way. My team was terrified of selling mutton. And I did mutton, I did that as a braise, and I did mutton loin chops. And I did that against lamb chops and had them taste the difference. And they actually preferred the mutton. And it's more affordable. My sales of mutton this past weekend, Super Bowl weekend too, went up 40%. It was incredible because they became passionate. Now they're eating the food that they're selling. They're tasting it. I talked about the preparations. There's carrots there. I roasted those with olive oil, our olive oil, salt and pepper. That's it. And they're so sweet and so delicious and so simple. And then that gets conveyed to the customer. I even had one of my guys let me know that he 100% attributed the amount of sales this past weekend to that one afternoon that I spent cooking for them. It was absolutely amazing. You need to connect with each member of your team. Be honest. Be genuine with them. Check in with them. Every day, I go up to each member of my team and ask them, how are you? And I make sure I remind them. I'm not asking them, how are you, because I want to just, oh, I'm fine, when they're really not. I want a genuine response. I want to know if they're having a bad day, if they were up all night because their kid was crying, I need to know that, because then I'm not holding them to the typical expectations. Now, if they're having multiple bad days, that's another talk. A weekly team meeting. Every Monday, just after lunch, bring the entire team together, and we go through every single person for them to talk about what they've seen, what they've experienced, ideas they have. My team loves to have their ideas heard. It makes them feel like they're part of something and part of the growth of the department. Monthly meeting. Now I sit down with each individual person, at least this is what I'm working on a monthly basis, and maybe it's not a formal meeting, but just pull them aside and say, hey, how's it going? A little further check-in. And then whether you want to do annual, biannual, or quarterly reviews, just to have that conversation two-way. And I let it be both ways. I want to know what they need from me, what they're not getting. Each person learns differently. This is one of those things that makes management so hard. If you could just have one way that you train everybody and they all learn it at the same rate, it would be so much easier. But one person learns different than another person than another person. And so you really need to start to pick up on your team the different ways that they learn, the different strengths they have, the different weaknesses that they have that you then need to bolster and build up. And listen to what they need. Listen to what they're saying they're not getting. And then I like to create competitions between them, create camaraderie, and it helps build speed. So like a box building competition, or you can even have a relay race where you have teams and one person builds boxes and then another person polishes avocados and then another person stickers and packs them, however you want to do it. But make it fun, but that team building and that connection time with all of your team is really, really critical. So you're starting to get your team built up. Now let them do the work. Let them start to train the next generation. Watch for those that really rise to the occasion, go the extra mile, stay a little longer just to make sure everything's cleaned up. That's really, really the way that I found my leaders, is by watching those individuals. Harness everybody's individual strength. For those of you that saw the market booth presentation yesterday, we have these beautiful chalkboard signs. My driver is an amazing artist, and I have him do them. And it's a great way for him to have his artistic outlet in everything that he does at the farm. Have at least one experienced lead at the market. I always have at least 2 people at the market because bathroom breaks and lunch breaks and all that stuff. But as new people come in, I find hands-on training is best, but I need to have somebody that's experienced there. And then trust but verify. I trust that my team's doing a great job, but I'm also going to check in on them. I go shop at the market, and I just say hello, see how the booth looks, see how they're doing. And they feel like I'm connecting with them, and really I'm just making sure they're not goofing off. The basic market rules that I send my team out with, Kevin will be sending this out to them on Monday. You can create your own ones, but for me, making good with a market manager is so important. I was always the kid that wanted to make sure that I did everything right with in class, so I didn't get called on, but that everything went smoothly. Never bash another farm. That is so key for me. We have customers come up and say, well, tell me why your produce is better than theirs. It's not better. It's different, and here's how it's different. No cell phones. I don't want them on their cell phones all the time. Stand, don't sit. Ask questions. I always want my team to ask questions and find out information. I always tell them when they start that the notes that they get and the information, it's not going to cover everything that you're going to be asked at the farmer's market. So be engaging. Ask questions. Ask the customer that comes and there goes straight for the okra. Hey, what do you do with that? And then they will go home and they'll try it. It's only produce. I came from kitchens, which was a high-stress environment, and it could get crazy. But at the end of the day, just remember, it's only produce. And then I trust you. And this, for me, is one of the biggest ones, because if they don't feel like they have their trust in me, they're not going to feel supported, and there's not going to be that connection. At the end of the market, I have the leads send out this recap, and they email it to the rest of the market team, as well as to our garden manager and a few other people on the farm. And this really quantifies that information that I need and a few other people need. And so we can go forward and plan from here. Were there any customer interactions of note? That's a great place for that I usually pull. If I did post a farmer's market tip, that's where I would get it from. So really, to retain your team, I found that the key is good communication. The weekly team meetings, clear instructions, brainstorming sessions, bringing them in, getting their ideas, letting them have their 2 cents, and having a two-way dialogue, making them feel like they can open up, give their suggestions. I might not choose everything that they suggest, but if I don't, I explain to them why, and it's a discussion. It's not the authoritarian, nope, I said no. And then when you're developing that relationship, you need to show a little vulnerability. I'm not saying open up and pour out everything to them, but have a little vulnerability so they see that you are human. I've had many people come in and feel like they couldn't even walk in my office and have a conversation with me. And so I had to open up and be vulnerable and show them that I was just another person. And it's come a long way. And then I want to make sure that they're happy. A safe working place. So show them just how much you care. Have equipment that's safe to use and reliable. I love MacGyvering stuff, and just to age myself, I have some of my team members that don't know what that means. But at the market, I want to make sure they're not having to figure that out on the fly. That's a culinary term. And then preparedness training. This is something we've actually done recently, but with the rise of fires and just threats and even active shooters, especially being at a market in a very public place, it's important that my team knows what to do in that case. And so we actually brought in an expert and had them come in and do a preparedness training, just to make sure that should that ever happen, I'm hopeful that it never does, that they have at least that training. And then spoil them a little. So we have a stipend that we're able to do on the farm. It's very fortunate. But I spend a little money on them every quarter. And then what I found really works well, and this might not be in everybody's budget, is give a little extra money on the weekends. Maybe it's 50 cents, maybe $1, but incentivize that weekend, because nobody ever wants to work the weekends, because that's when everybody's doing stuff and they're missing out. And then I know we're probably short on time. Okay. What makes you want to get out of bed and go to work? This, for me, wait, did I skip over one? So really, to build a team, it's just like building your customer base. Treat your team members the same way you build your customers. And this is something that I've had to learn along the way, because it's very easy for me to say, hey, go do that. I would never ask a customer, hey, go grab that over there. No, I'm going to say, hey, let me get that for you. And if you do that with your staff, they're going to go the extra mile for you. Engage them. Show that you have similar interests and start building that relationship the way you would with a customer. If you can just build that the same way you do with your customer, which I know you guys are all doing every single week, you're going to see a huge boost in the morale and the relationship that you have with your team. So what makes you want to get out of bed and go to work in the morning? For me, I want to be inspired. And the picture of the fruit basket with 87 varietals, that's inspiring to me. I want to enjoy what I'm doing. I want to be challenged. So if I want all of these things, it's natural to assume that it's similar to what my team wants. And I found it to be the case. So pursue their passions, find ways to incorporate it. I'm not going to say you're going to have no turnover. I think low turnover is a good thing because people are going to burn out. They're going to get tired. They are going to decide that they've learned all that they can and want to move on. You're just looking for them to kind of stagger when they're leaving so you can continue to build that foundation which you started. It's not about creating a team that will last forever. It's creating a culture and a system that will carry the lore that you've started to endure. I love that quote. There's synergy in diversity. We need diversity. We need to build on each other's strengths and weaknesses. There needs to be that. I'm much more of a numbers guy. My number 2 at the farm, he's much more of a person guy. If I just drove everything, we would have very, very low morale. And so bouncing those ideas off of each other is so key. I want to thank all of you in here for all the work you do on a daily basis. The passion, the hard work that you all put in, if we could just have everybody in the world give just a fraction of that to them, I feel like the world itself would be a better place. So I want to thank you, and I want to thank Kat and the rest of the team for putting this convention together. It's been absolutely great.
All right, everyone, thanks for listening to this edition of Tent Talk. Please leave us a review on iTunes, Stitcher, or wherever you access your podcasts, and tell us how you're enjoying Tent Talk. Be sure to subscribe to our podcast so you don't miss the next episode. And if you want more farmers market tips, tricks, and information, you can subscribe to our weekly newsletter at farmersmarketpros.com and follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Farmers Market Pros. This podcast is produced by Farmers Market Pros, where passion meets profit. Thanks to Adam Samaha and Justine Marzoni Mead for being recording and editing wizards, and David Mead for your perfect original Tent Talk music. Thanks for listening.